Legacy Maker, the All Sports Network.
Hello, everybody. I'm Darrell Owens, Legacy Maker Sports Network. And of course, everybody's been, at home trying to figure out what to do. But guess what? We still wanted to bring you some in-depth analysis, and we got one of the best on our hands today. My man, Sean Robertson from CBS 6 here in Richmond. Sean, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Taking it one day at a time. How about you?
Man, I can't complain, man. Like you said, just taking it one day at a time, just trying to get through smoothly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Sean, you just got back. You just got back fresh from vacation. I know that's got to feel good. But let me ask you this. I mean, you became a father a couple of months, almost 9 months ago.
8 months yesterday. He turned 8 months yesterday.
Yeah,
Monday.
Congratulations on that. So how's fatherhood treating you, man? How's fatherhood treating you so far?
It's a whole different world. People told me, my mom told me, she was the first one that told me, she said, you will never know your life before you had your baby. And she was exactly right. There are some things that you do remember that you will not forget. And then there's some things that are like a complete blur. And when he was born, it was like most of those things that I felt was important are not nearly as important as they were before. I mean, he is like, that's my dog. I mean, it's like, I wake up in the morning and I see him in his crib and he'll look at me and start that smile. And it's like, okay, whatever I had at work that was like really frustrating, or, I just had, just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, just had a bad night. And I see him and it's like, it erases everything at that point. Totally changed my life.
Yeah, I got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. And the girls that, I had them first. So there's nothing. And one day when you get a chance and you get that girl, there's nothing like a daughter's love to a father. They treat you like a king. And I remember every day coming home and the first thing they'd be like, Daddy, they run to the door. And it was always something amazing and a great feeling. But like you said, once, when I had my son a couple years ago, it meant the world to me because it's something I've always wanted. I wanted somebody that I could, I guess you could say groom and teach you how to be a great man. And, he's a mess, but I love him. He's my mess. And I can truly understand how it feels to have, the child. But wait till they get multiples and they start to they play off each other. Oh,
it's to me, it's like the little things. It's like my wife will hold him. And then if I come in from work, she will say, Daddy's home. And then like, he'll see me and he'll kind of reach out, like wanting me to hold him. It's like, I really don't have to say much. He'll smile and reach out and hold, and he'll say, reach out and hold me. Like, we were on vacation. We were watching like some of the old football games that Fox would show. And he'll sit on my lap and his eyes are like glued to the television. And it's like, oh man, it's like right when you were born. When he was a day old, it was a Thursday night game, Eagles-Packers. And I told my wife, I said, we got to watch this game. I said, I got to groom him.
Got to get him in.
He probably doesn't even remember, but it's like I'm holding him and we're like in the hospital room watching that Thursday night game. And I'm getting the feeling like every time there's like a football game or there's a sporting event, or even if I'm on TV, it's like his head is like, it'll go from one side directly to that television. And we'll just pay attention for, 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever time we are together. It's almost like he remembers that night to a certain degree. He probably doesn't, but just he remembers that feeling of me wanting to watch a sporting event with him. And he's like just as, ingrained into that image of wanting to watch a sporting event with his dad. I'm like, that's like, I'm like over the moon when I see that. I'm like, when he gets a year or two old and we watch a Sunday football, I'm like, we'll be heaven. At that point.
Ain't nothing like planting that seed. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm still kind of working on my son a little bit. Football, we got him now in football a little bit. He'll come in and watch it with me. But wrestling, which we'll get to a little bit later, is where
Yeah.
I'm still trying to work with them all. But we'll see. We'll see.
I'm slowly but surely. We got to get to, when he gets to a year and kind of really, vividly see the images. And I'm like, okay, now this is the old school stuff. We'll get you with the new school, but this is what I grew up.
This is the bread and butter right here.
Yes. But this is my stuff. I can teach you some stuff with that. Yeah.
So how has life been for you with everything going with COVID? How have you adjusted? How have your family adjusted? How's work? How's all that kind of gone for you since everything is went down?
We touched on it briefly before we started the interview, and I even mentioned it with Kyle Laletta, former Spiders quarterback. I did a Zoom interview with him yesterday. The pandemic is an awful situation that our country is dealing with, but in a weird sort of way, it was a blessing in disguise for me. Becoming a new father. We got called off the road during the ACC and A10 men's basketball tournament. I'm in Greensboro. Lane Casadante, my sports director at CBS 6, he's in Brooklyn for the A10 tournament, and we get a call from our news director saying, "Hey, we want you guys both off the road. We want you, close to home as quickly as you can. Not, speed or anything like that, but we just want you home safe and get away from being, 4 hours, 3 hours, or 6 hours away from home." We didn't cover a sporting event since March, and if the basketball, NCAA basketball tournament was still going on, I'm on the road. I'm in Greensboro. I'm at another event. I'm not with my family, with my son, my wife at that particular point. So spending more time with them that I would not have if the pandemic didn't take place in March and April. Work is a little different. We mentioned it. We're relying heavily on social media, Zoom, FaceTime, any virtual type of interview product that we can get our hands on. We have to use that. Now, we still go out and do our interviews face to face, in person, if that subject is comfortable doing it. Otherwise, out of the state, we're on Zoom. We're emailing those invites. Hey guys, we need to do this. I mean, I spoke to Kyle Laletta yesterday. I interviewed Dave Sims, play-by-play voice, TV play-by-play voice of the Seattle Mariners, a few weeks ago. I interviewed Eric Jones Sunday, the NASCAR driver. Guys from the area, coaches, athletic directors. I mean, this is now going to be our new normal. Moving forward, even after this pandemic is kind of like subsided, we're going to get so comfortable doing this. We could talk to a guy, thousands of miles away from us. Like if we want to do this story, we've got now this avenue of, we can go do it on Zoom. We can just pull Zoom up and just pull some video from YouTube or have them send us the video or B-roll or file video. But we have this new avenue that we probably weren't going to use before the pandemic. Now this is kind of like going to be our new normal. And we've been using that basically ever since the pandemic started in March. And we've just been rolling on ever since. We have not missed one sportscast since the pandemic. Either Lane or I have done a sportscast every night since the pandemic started, whether it's been on remote or in the studio or in our office. Other stations, other departments, they have decided to move them to news or furlough. Unfortunately, we've been blessed to, cover any and everything that we can. And our news director and general manager has given us the leash to stay with sports as opposed to moving us to news, which has been a good thing.
Well, that's a phenomenal thing that you're still able to get to do your passion and keep things rocking and rolling on that end. So that's a good deal there. Let me ask you this now. You've been 12 years, if I'm correct, 12 years at CBS 6, and finally
12 years in August.
12 years in August. Finally, you have been nominated for two, not one, but two Capital Emmys. Congratulations on that. And can you tell us a little bit about those projects that got you the nominations?
Sure. Oh, thank you for the compliment with that. I greatly appreciate it. It took me by surprise a little bit. A quick story. I got to mention this. Somebody asked me, how did you find out about it? And I told them I found out on Twitter. I was watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with my wife, and I get a notification on my phone, and I look at it, and it's a sports producer in DC who I've known for a few years, and it says, "Congratulations to my man, CBS 6 Sports, Sean." And I look at it, and I'm like, I ain't gonna repeat the FCC guidelines won't allow me to repeat what I said, but I look at it, and I'm like, oh, and my wife looks at me, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I kind of looked at her for a few seconds. She was like, "What is wrong?" And I said, "I got nominated for an Emmy." And she was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah." So one of them was for we did a special called The Road to Redemption, the story of UVA's run to their first college basketball national championship. So we did this over, I think, a 2 or 3 day span in Minneapolis. We recapped their Final Four win against Auburn and their national championship win against Texas Tech. So that was one of them. It was me, and it was a boatload of people, but it's a selective process. If your television station doesn't submit it on your behalf, you then have to add your name to that submission and then pay for it. Well, it's up to that person, reporter, producer, anchor, or whoever. It's up to them on whether or not they want to pay for their name to be on the submission. So for this one was 3 of us. It was me, Scott Wise, who was a producer, and our producer director for marketing, David Stotts. We put our names on it and said, let's give it a shot and see what happens. So it was, like I said, that Final Four run for UVA, covering their wins over Auburn and Texas Tech. And the second one was our Sunday night newscast that recapped the Super Bowl in Atlanta when New England beat when New England beat St. Louis. I was going to say beat the Rams. I'm sorry, the LA Rams. It's going back to Kurt Warner, looking at those documentaries this weekend. When New England beat the LA Rams in Atlanta. And it was the same weekend of the blackface controversy with Governor Ralph Northam.
Oh.
So we had complete coverage of that back in Richmond. And then we had coverage of the Super Bowl in Atlanta. Lane, myself, Greg McQuaid, Vernon Freeman, who did the web, Chris Norton, who was a photographer, and Brad Wilson, who also was a photographer. And it was the same, thing. Whoever wants to add their name, pay the fee, yada, yada, yada. And so that was also nominated for an Emmy for that category. So those 2 stories or newscasts was nominated for. So we'll see. August 8th is the date of the Emmy ceremony. I don't know if it's going to be live, like we're going to physically go to DC, or if it'll be a virtual ceremony. But we'll find out August 8th whether or not I'll put some babies behind me.
I was just about to say, it looks like you might be able to slide the books to the left a little bit and, put it right there,
put one side
the
the WCW World Title belt, and then the other awards I got. I can
oh yeah, most definitely. It'll look really nice right there. Now, speaking of UVA, now you were there when UVA had a chance to cut down the nets, and being able to cover UVA has been, a blessing in disguise over here in the last 2 years. And for you, how did it feel being there? And what has that title win done for, the area itself, as a sports area? Because a lot of people see Virginia and they say, well, they got some good athletes in the Tidewater area. You get a couple people in the central area every now and then, but nobody really looks at our teams college-wise and said, man, those teams are phenomenal. Tech got a little love back in the early 2000s. But finally, Virginia wins this national championship. And now, we get looked at just a little bit different. How do you think that changed, and how was your experience there?
I mean, the experience was phenomenal. I mean, I had covered a Final Four before with VCU, but I never got to see it all the way. This experience was like, it was like that. We talked about it after they won it. It was, this is the perfect 30 for 30 story that ESPN could do. I was there in 2018 when UVA lost to UMBC. in Charlotte, was there for that, for that historic loss. And then to turn around a year later and for them to start their run basically in that same building, because the ACC tournament the following year was in Charlotte. So there was that big storyline. You're coming back to the House of Horrors that ended your year. They made it to the conference semifinals, lost it, but they gained a lot of confidence from that loss to Florida State. And we were just going to wonder, once you step on that floor, all eyes are going to be on UVA. And just to see how they handle the pressure from the Gardner-Webb game when they trailed by double figures in the first half, to then the Purdue game when, there was like, oh, here we go again. We're going to lose in the Elite Eight again. And then the Diakite play to the Auburn play. I mean, it's like, it was amazing. And then to follow Jason Williford, who is the associate head coach at UVA. He played his high school basketball at John Marshall in the area. And we had this little thing that before and after every game, he and I would do an interview. So he walks into U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, walks in for the national championship game, and we're walking down the hallway. And I looked at him. I was like, "Don't forget, win or lose, I got you after the game, right?" And he said, "We're going to talk about a win." I was like, "Okay, we're going to still keep the tradition going, right?" Soon as I walk in the locker room after they win, first place I go is to this little door in the locker room where all the coaches would be after the game. And I knock on the door, and the equipment manager comes out. And I was like, is Williford in there? He was like, sure. He comes out and he looks at me, gives me this hug. And it was just to see his face, being a former player and being in the Elite Eight in 95 on that team. And like I said, just following his journey to this point, being a local guy. And it was one of the coolest things I ever got to do. And like I said, just to see those guys handle that huge and bright spotlight of being the team that everybody will remember, of being the number one seed, the only number one seed to lose to a 16, and to turn around in a year and win the national championship, and to follow that run from the conference tournament all the way to the national championship. I mean, that is something I will never, ever forget. And just to see them cut the nets, and like I said, see Williford, see Bennett and his emotion overflowing from beating Purdue to slapping that sticker on the on that Final Four bracket. I was like, it's amazing. Like I said, it's something I will never, ever forget.
Now, you talking about local stars with Williford, but let's talk about another local star who just got drafted into the WNBA, and Megan Walker. And you had a great sit down with her a couple of weeks ago. And, I had a chance to cover some of her teammates at University of Richmond with the Parsons sisters, and still covering them a little bit. And, looking at what Walker has done in her first, her 3 years at UConn, making the leap to the WNBA. A lot of people, haven't done that. I think Candace Parker may be one person that's done it. What are your thoughts after having that chance to sit down with her on her readiness for the WNBA and just her mentality? What do you think of Megan Walker after your chance to sit down with her and conversate?
She's one of the few athletes that I think has handled the pressure of being the number one athlete, or the number one athlete in her school, on her team, the number one recruit in the country. She's handled it with class. She's handled it like a pro. She goes about her business. She doesn't take things too seriously. She knows what she has to do, but she has fun doing it. But she also understands the goal to accomplish. She did it at Monacan, 3 straight state championships. She did it at UConn, leading scorer last year, was regular season player of the year, tournament MVP of the American Athletic Conference. First player ever to leave UConn after her junior season, played 3 years, decided to leave. Only player to ever to do that. She's one person that I will never doubt because I think a lot of people doubted her leaving UConn as to why would you leave? You'll be again the number one player on the team. You have some great players coming back. Why would you leave? And I think that might have fueled her to say, you know what? I have a dream. I've been wanting this since I've been a little kid. No better time to accomplish my dream than the present. Top 10 pick. She's going to a major market in New York. She'll have more opportunities, both on the court and off the court, going to that situation. It would not shock me that she would succeed in New York. She's got a lot of talent there. Sabrina Ionescu, Player of the Year, National Player of the Year. She worked out with her in Los Angeles, and then I think in Vegas, they both spoke with Kobe. She's got that Kobe mentality in her that if you need me to take over, I will. I think she's got a little bit of that dog in her where I've seen that against Kings Fork, her final game in Monacan, where she scored, I think, the last, 14 or 16 points for Monacan. She doesn't have to do it, but if you need her to do it, she can do it. She has shown she can do it. So it would not shock me if she went there and became, a multi-time all-star, first team defensive player, leads the team in scoring. She probably won't lead in rebounding and assists because Ionescu would take care of that. But she's going to be one of those players that, you're going to build that team around. You see Ionescu, you see Megan, you see Willoughby from out of UVA. Those, to me, that can be your nucleus along with the players that are returning for the Liberty. So I think, I would not doubt Megan Walker at all, because I think if she puts her mind to it and she almost got a little bit of Jordan in her, don't tell her she can't do it, because she's going to prove to you that she can, and she will use anything she needs or deems necessary to motivate her to get it done, and I think she will.
I think the Liberty had a phenomenal draft. I mean, you get three of the top 10 picks, and you talked about Willoughby from
and traded up. They traded up to get Megan.
Right, and I know I heard a little bit with you when you was talking to you that New York kind of told her that they wanted her.
Yeah,
and they did whatever they needed to do, and like I said, they did a really good job in that draft. It may not be right away, but the Liberty could be something to watch out here in the next couple of years. Now, you've been, like I said, we talked about you being at CBS 6 for 12 years. What is your favorite moment, sports moment that you had at CBS 6?
Wow.
Tough one, I know.
Man, just one. I mean, my gut will say, as a Redskin fan, the year they won the division with RG3, and it was my first time seeing a playoff game live when they played Seattle, albeit, that basically was the game that basically ended RG3 career in Washington. But, I'm in the press box. That was a time we couldn't shoot on the field. The local media couldn't shoot on the field. It was primarily for the national guys. So we're in the press box, and I'm like sitting around looking at people who I've seen on TV and, watching the field. And I'm like, I'll be damned. I mean, Redskin fan for God knows how long. And I'm sitting in the press box of a playoff game, seeing my favorite team play the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, collegiate standout, Michael Robinson, Verona standout, Cam Chancellor, Tech grad. I mean, you got a lot of local connections on these teams. And I'm like, I got one of the best seats in the house to watch this. And then 3 years later, they do it again. They win the division. I get to go to the playoff game against Green Bay, your team. And I'm on the field. I mean, this time I'm on the field. I'm feeling the energy of the crowd. They jump out to the lead early. They do come back and lose. Green Bay, great performance by Aaron Rodgers that game. But just to be on the sideline, it was a totally different feel. Being on the sideline, shooting that game, and like I said, feeling that energy from the crowd, dying to win a playoff game for the first time since 2005, and they come up short. But just being on the field and, talking to Morgan before the game and, looking at the guys and seeing their body language and looking at their eyes. And it's like, again, I'm getting paid for this. Dick Vitale always says like stealing money, but it's like my favorite team is on this field, and I'm getting ready to work shooting a NFC. Yeah, I mean it was work for 3 hours because it was
Right.
cold, but I'm just saying. But still, like I said, being a diehard Redskins fan, and I'm like, the last 2 times they made it to the playoffs, I got to see with my own eyes in that stadium, as opposed to sitting at home watching TV. I mean, for me being a diehard Redskins fan, I mean, I wouldn't trade that for nothing in the world other than the win that they should have got. But and both games they had leads, double-digit leads, and both games they lost it. But neither here nor there. I mean, the 2 Final Four runs that I got to cover with VCU and UVA. Trying to think of some other ones. Man, I mean, probably like I said, we talked about the Megan Walker game. The high school. Covering a high school state final, and people would think, man, that's not really something. But it's like, that game between Monacan and King Ford, it was sold out at the Siegel Center. 7,600 people came to see a girls' state final because of Megan Walker, and Gino is in the suites looking down to see his number 1 recruit play her final game in high school. I mean, stuff like that. The run that John Marshall has had in basketball, the run in football. I mean, I covered, there was a stretch I've covered, I think 6 straight state championship finals that were winners. I mean, I did the Bird's last 2, Highland Springs' first 2. I did a hold up, it was 4. Then I did the last Highland Springs state title, so that's 5. Trying to think of the other one. Hopewell's state championship win. And I covered the Dinwiddie game, even though they lost at their state final. So it was like every year for like 6 or 7 years straight. You got to see them run all the way out from the first game on to the state championship game. But I mean, you put a gun to my head and said which one I would pick the most. I probably would say the Redskins playoff games, just because 30 plus years, being a diehard fan, and to actually see them get there and play well for a quarter or a half, but to see them live and in person play in a postseason game was great.
Yeah, I gotta concur a little bit. The Redskins, probably the first time I got to see Green Bay play. Well, the first game I actually got to cover was Green Bay and the Redskins in the preseason game 3 years ago. And since that time, the honor of covering a Cam Newton, they've had some really good quarterbacks come in the last couple of years. They had Matt Ryan, Tom Brady was there last year. That was an honor. To be able to even share a room with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to say, I'm standing right here in front of, the 2 of the greatest, people in the NFL's history, greatest quarterback in most people's eyes, greatest coach in most people's eyes. So, you get a chance for those moments, and you, in this, like you said, you're doing it, and it's like you're getting paid to do what? Like, this is it for me,
I mean,
so.
You mentioned the Patriots. They were in Richmond for the joint practices a few years ago, and they're walking down that strip, from the training facility to the field.
Right.
And they walk right past me. I'm literally shoulder to shoulder to Bill Belichick. He walks right past me. I'm in the press room with Bill Belichick, doing the press conference. Tom Brady throwing the football on the other field, and I'm shooting him. I'm like, thinking to myself, I'm never going to see Tom Brady in person. Okay, I get to see.
And then there he is.
Yeah, he's right there at the practice. J.J. Watt, the year after, the Houston Texans was there. I get to see Watt in person. That was, I guess, also maybe a come out party for Hopkins. He had that little tiff with D'Angelo Hall on that field, and I'm right there. There are so many over a decade plus at CBS 6. I mean, my first NCAA tournament. I had gone to a women's NCAA tournament, but I had never done a men's NCAA tournament. First year, VCU and UCLA up in was at the Wachovia Center, I think, at the time. They had just moved out of the Spectrum. So I got to see Eric Maynard's last game in a VCU uniform. They lost by a point there. Like I said, the VCU run of the Final Four started in Dayton, goes to Chicago, San Antonio, and then to Houston, and then UVA's run. Like I said, I remember the cities. We started, like I said, ACC was in Charlotte, then it was in Columbia, Louisville, and then Minneapolis. So, there's like a boatload. I mean, like I said, a boatload.
Just so many.
Yeah, you can go pro, you can go college, you can go high school. But like I said, some of the best moments I've been a part of have been some high school, state championship games, state semifinal games. It's like I still say it ain't nothing like going to a high school football game on a Friday night or a Saturday.
Exactly.
With a state title on the line. And you see these kids work their butts off and the coaches crying like babies, and you see the crowd it's nothing like it. I probably said that a lot, but it's truly nothing like seeing those guys.
It's at its purest form, you can, once it gets a little bit higher, the money starts kicking in, and in college there's the debate over money, but in high school, that is the purest form. You get to see a community come together and see the kids out of their community make something big happen. So I definitely agree. 20 years in Amelia, calling those games, I can tell you, we've had two chances that we this close to.
I was at the last one. The playoff game. That was my first time ever going to it. And I'm sorry, was it a playoff game? Or
was it the Amelia Goochland game?
Yes.
Yeah. That was.
It felt like a playoff game because if Goochland won, they were going to be the 1 seed.
And if Amelia won, they were the 1 seed. It was crazy.
So it was basically a playoff. That was my first time going. It was like I'll never forget that day. It was like I shot 6 games, college and pro, that day, and it ended. In fact, Amelia was not even the last game I went to. The last game I went to was Dale and Prince George that night because they had moved it. I think it was either rain or SAT testing. I started at TJ. Then I went to, it was TJ, Union, Holland Springs, Varina was that afternoon because they switched. Wait a minute, it was, now I'm missing again. Oh, no, it was Collegiate. I'm sorry, I started at Collegiate, TJ, Union State, Holland Springs, Varina, Amelia, Goochland, and I ended with TJ and Prince George.
Running.
So I started at Collegiate and ended. So I'm going all over the place. But I got to see, like, it was, I think, Collegiate St. Chris. So that was a big rivalry between them. Forgot who TJ played that day. I don't think they had a rivalry game, but it was like 4 rivalry games that day. Union State, and then Holland Springs, Varina, Amelia Gooch, a big rivalry, and Collegiate St. Chris, prep rivalry. So it's like I said, it's, those type of games is like those, like certain memories or certain days you can they stand out. It's like, so yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's definitely been tough battles between Amelia and Goochland. It's never goes in Amelia's favor. It seems like maybe one day, but I think Goochland's moving up into the Region 3 now. So I guess we'll see how that goes. I think they'll still.
Amelia's at 3 now.
Well, Goochland's moving up to 3. Amelia's going to stay at 2, but I think they're going to.
Okay.
I think it's one more year before Goochland's completely up there. But at the playoffs, the Goochland can't play Amelia in the playoffs anymore. They can still play them during the regular season, but not in the playoffs anymore.
Right.
They changed that stuff so much.
Goochland took Hopewell to the limit. They were probably the closest team to knocking off Hopewell in the postseason last year. Lost only I think it was a touchdown, but they went right back and forth. That was another one. It wasn't a state final, but that game went back and forth, and then Trey Henderson takes over in the second half. So stuff like that.
Ohio State's getting themselves quite the piece.
Kind of stunned me that he was going to Ohio State, but just looking at his film from last year, and just like I told people, 2 of the coaches from UVA was at his first playoff game last year, the offensive coordinator and the running back coach, and they looked at me and it was like we were talking about him and Tyree, and like, who do you think would be who do you pick? And I'm like, to me, you go with Henderson just because of durability.
Right.
He, Shannon Sharp says the best ability is availability. And Henderson has shown he's more durable than Tyree. Notre Dame is going to get a stud, and they
Right.
put him in the right position. He's going to be a stud at Notre Dame, but he's never played a full season at Thomasdale.
I say that's the type of stuff you got to watch out for.
Yeah, Henderson has played a full season. He's shown that he can play between the tackles. He's shown he can play on both sides and special teams, like Tyree. But again, like I said, that durability issue is going to be a concern. And the fact that when you see Henderson in the open field, there has been rarely, if any, a time he has been caught from behind. I covered, I think, 7 or 8 Hopewell games last year, and I don't think there was one time when he got into the open field that nobody caught him from behind.
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
He's a bad boy. And that backfield is going to be loaded with him. I forget the other kid that's coming back for him. And then they get Eric McDaniels, a transfer from Henrico, that's going to be down there. They got a 3-headed, almost like last year's team. It would not surprise me that if they don't run the table again next year. They missing some key parts on the defensive side, but you got 3 studs that each could run for over 1,000 yards on, any given year. Any 3, could be a starter at any other school, and they're all going to be in that. Ricky Irvin, I'm tell you what, he won't admit he's got a lot of pressure on him again this year. They already won the state.
He has to be. I mean, with that much talent at running back, the expectations are going to be big. Yeah. But I think he's the type of coach that I feel like can put those guys and put them in the right situations to push through. So, but yeah, Hopewell's going to be another stud this year. I can't wait to see how they roll. So hopefully we get a chance to go out there and catch a couple of games ourselves. Now we're here at the end, but that we couldn't go, because when I first got an opportunity to meet you, probably a couple of years ago in VCU's press room. We started talking about wrestling and, who's the greatest of all time and, just a back and forth debate. And my man, Rob, which I know he still says AJ Styles is the greatest of all time, but we're not going to let that ruin a great interview. We're not going to let that ruin a great interview.
Okay, if he still thinks AJ is still the greatest, but I digress.
I'm also digress on that one as well. Now, so I want to hear from you, your top 5 wrestlers of all time. I see you got that WCW championship in the back. I got a little baby of my own. So it's not my favorite belt because my one that I really want to get, the one that I got the spinner belt. I got the spinner belt. That's one of my babies. But the one I really want.
Did you get that from somewhere else?
I got that at WrestleMania one year. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've been to a WrestleMania.
I've been to WrestleMania twice, 33 and 34. Yeah, you have to go at least once, even if not for the wrestling, because some of the WrestleMania matches the last couple of years have been but if you just as a fan experience, it is amazing.
Well, I can imagine.
It's absolutely amazing.
I can imagine.
Oh man, I mean, you're just walking down the street, and we were in New Orleans, and every time you turn around the corner, there was somebody there. I remember, what's my man name from the Vaudevillains? Simon Gotch. We were walking back from the Superdome after NXT, and Gotch is on the street. I'm not going to say he was inebriated, but he seemed like he had maybe a drink or so. And he goes into this thing about John Cena and it was just we got it on tape. It was hilarious. But he went on in this thing about John Cena, and it was kind of weird, but it was like, oh, okay, thank you, Simon. That was really appreciative. But yeah, you saw everybody. Wrestler was on the street corner. We saw David Otunga was at CBS getting, I don't know what he was getting, but he was at CBS getting stuff. We saw Velveteen Dream on Bourbon Street. And then you had, I can't even think of, that's my man's name, Elias. Elias had his big concert at one of the bars right there, just a promptu one. So it was amazing. And just being around that many wrestling fans, you got to do it at least once. Yeah, I don't know how you make it happen.
I'm going to save some money because that's a lot of money to get down there.
It is. I'll tell you what, we spent, it was around $1,000. And that included all of it included Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, and it also included the NXT show, for that weekend and hotel stay. The only thing we had to pay extra was the hotel. Was the plane. So getting the flight out there was the biggest thing. But they asked them, if you catch them early, you can catch a decent package. But yeah, let's get to it. Give me your top 5 wrestlers of all time. I'll give you mine. I know you're gonna laugh at me, but I got a reasoning behind mine.
Now, are we doing this based on? Now, see, I was thinking about this. So, are we doing this based on technical skill in the ring, promo work, drawing money? I mean, because if we're doing it on like one of the three, the list will be different. Now, if we're doing it on,
that's what I was thinking too, because I was like, all right. Well, mentally, I was thinking, all right. So my personal list is based off of kind of like I like guys with. It's gonna sound crazy, but I love the music. I think the music does take a part of it. Charisma, and I'm a huge heel guy, so some of it has to do with being a good heel as well.
right.
So those are like my criteria for my favorite ones. But then I have a separate list for who I think, if you look at all wrestlers and say, okay, who changed the business? Who's your overall, greatest wrestler? Then I have a list for that. But I'll let you. We'll just do it to keep it, simple. Just give me your 5 overall.
All right.
Top
I will categorize it based on the 3 that I mentioned. The ability in the ring, the promo work, and drawing money. So if you're going to do that, to me, I mean, no particular order, but I'm going to say Ric Flair, obviously, number 1, because he can handle all 3.
Right.
You got to put Hogan up there because he was able to bring in money in 3 different organizations. WWF, WCW, and also TNA for a while. Mm-hmm. AWA, he was starting to build, but he wasn't the guy in the AWA. At least with Flair, he's done it longer. He's done it over different territories. He did it not only in the territory days, but he also did it in the Monday Night War days when it was strictly cable. You got to put, to me, in the latter part of his career, I would say Stone Cold, because he had the ability to talk the people into the arena. From what they were saying, he was the biggest draw over Hogan before Cena did it. He was the guy. I mean, basically every pay-per-view, he has the luxury and the benefit of blowing up at a time where the pay-per-views were coming every month.
Right.
So people were coming every month and spending, $50, $60 to see, Stone Cold against, Vince. Perfect heel against the perfect face at the perfect time. If Flair's prime was now in those 90s and stuff like that, he probably would bring in the most money at that point. So I would say those would be 3. I would have to say Dusty. He wasn't technically sound, but he had that it factor in the ring. He didn't have the look, but he had that it factor. He could talk his butt off, no question. The son of a plumber. Wine and dine with kings and queens, slept in the alley eating pork and beans. He brought in money. He was like that one of the first national stars. He started in Florida. Well, actually started in AWA, but his home and where he made his career was Florida. But then he would go to the WWF and work against superstar Billy Graham in New York. He would go to Japan. He would come back to Florida, then go to Crockett, then goes to WWE, then starts his own company. So that would be 4. And the 5th one, I mean, you could debate it. You could say what The Rock did, because he had that ability to talk.
Right.
He had he made some money. I would say the Horsemen, but that's a group, so I'm not going to throw that in there. Because they made a lot of money and they made a lot of people look really, really good. And that's, to me, another attribute to being in that category. Hogan not always made a lot of guys look good, but he made those guys get money. When you were in that spot with Hogan, you knew you were going to get a big paycheck. Same thing with Flair. When you were in that spot, you knew you were going to make a lot of money. You knew he was going to make you look good, and that was going to be the start of your career. Now, what you do after that is on you. But Flair made a lot of careers.
He did.
During that
He did.
time.
He did.
So I'm going to say a guy that kind of fits that mode would be Harley Race. He made a lot of guys. He had that great rivalry with the Funks, the great rivalry with Dusty, the rivalry in the late 70s into the mid 80s with Flair. He would travel. He was one of those last traveling champs. Flair was the last one of the last ones, but Harley was that guy that you're gonna make money with him in Missouri, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas. He would go to Japan, but he also made a lot of guys too. And not only was he a great singles wrestler, great tag team wrestler, great manager. He was a great talker. He wasn't a shouter, but he was kind of like he was Arn Anderson before Arn Anderson, because Arn would. Flair would go crazy. JJ kind of would go a little crazy. Tully may do it, but then Arn would put it all together in one little package. Wouldn't raise his voice a lot, but look dead in the camera, and you had that feel that if you did him wrong, you were going to pay for it. Man, somehow, some way.
And Arn Anderson promo is a promo.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember the one in particular, but watching, I forgot which one it was. I think it was the My Spot one when he was telling Mr. Perfect he was giving him his spot, and I just sit here and I was like, man, he's making this so believable right now. Like I'm just soaked into it. I love listening. I can go and I'm pretty sure they have it on YouTube. I go on YouTube and hit play and just listen to Arn Anderson talking. I'm like, yeah, Arn, you tell him. You tell him, Arn.
There's one promo out. There's one on the it was either the Four Horsemen DVD or the Ric Flair DVD. It might have been the Four Horsemen DVD. And it's something that I used to this day, even at Channel 6. And I always say, he said, being a horseman is not something you wake up in the morning and take off at night. It's a state of mind.
Yeah.
It's a state of mind is being the best that you can possibly be. And he said it's four individuals thinking singularly, acting collectively for the greater good. And I mean, you could use that at any company.
Right. It's like a motivational tool.
It's a doctrine. And Tully would say the same thing. He said, be whatever you want, but be the best at it. And Arn, when he said that, I rewound it and I listened to it again. And he was like, it's four individuals thinking singularly, but acting collectively. And when I first went to Channel 6, I'm like, God, it's like 50 some odd people acting singularly, but working collectively for the common goal. And I'm like, damn, that's Arn Anderson. I'm like, I just thought about that, like, that's the promo. I mean, you could use it in your everyday life or your, whatever business that you work in. If you're working with a group, that's like your slogan. We're X amount of people think we're thinking singularly, but acting collectively for the common goal. And I'm like, so if it was just promos, if it's just, a list of promo, Arn's near the top.
Yeah, I think it gets tough because you get throw Jake the Snake in there too. And I'm like, it's that's why I say, like, it's tough because you're right. You break it down by categories, it starts to get a little bit like, oh man, this is going to be rough because there's a lot of people that can do it in different ways. And, I think especially if we're doing promos, Jake the Snake will be a name that I toss in there. But all right, so I'm going to give you my list. Now, your list that you just gave is pretty much where I see things when I say, if I'm looking at overall and I'm not taking my feelings into it, that's pretty much at least four of those guys, if not all, would probably make my list. The only people I would throw in there as a consideration, and because I think of his long-term work, especially not the last couple of years, but The Undertaker is a guy I think you can consider. And you look, I told you before, Shawn Michaels is one of my guys, and so I would consider him. I don't know if I can put him above those guys, but I would at least consider him.
He drew money. and he was great in the ring. He never, to me, was a great promo guy. I don't think.
It's a little cloudy here and there.
There's some that were
He had his
good.
moments.
Yeah, but I mean, like, consistently over the years. Like I said with Flair, like in Mid-Atlantic, there was some great promos in the Mid-Atlantic era. There was great promos in Crockett's era. There was great ones at WCW. They were great in WWE. Maybe a couple in TNA, but I don't even talk about TNA. It's like Jordan with the Wizards. I don't talk about Flair in TNA.
It's like Jordan with the Wizards.
Yeah, I don't talk about that. But I mean, to me, I don't think of Shawn Michaels as a great promo guy. I don't think of Bret Hart as a great promo guy. He's a great wrestler, technical, in the ring.
Right.
But as far as to me, and I guess that's that Dusty, I hear it a lot with Dusty. If I can talk you into a seat every 14 inches, especially at a time where that was the goal. There was no producer writing a script for me to say verbatim. Somebody's going to tell me I got 3 minutes. You have a match with this guy on this night. Go. Yeah. And I'm a run with it.
Right.
So, so Michaels is hard to put up there in there. And if you're just saying pure skill in the ring,
yeah,
yes,
he'd be in the mix. Yeah.
He'd be there. But to me, can I honestly say that Shawn Michaels made a guy's career? Can Bret Hart say, I made a guy's career? Maybe Steve Austin, maybe with the double turn at WrestleMania 13. Maybe you could say that. If that, that could be one. Maybe the British Bulldog, but he didn't take advantage of it. He gave him the belt at SummerSlam '92 in London at Wembley Stadium. But you think about the guys that Flair made that had no business making money.
Luger.
None.
Luger. That's just my opinion. I'm not a Lex Luger fan,
great look, but there was no business. No way he should have been in that group in '87.
Exactly.
No way. If they could have go back in time, they could have made Wyndham a heel then, and then start that group 1 year earlier. If you thought about, Wyndham had the look in '87. Now, it wasn't that physical, specimen look like Luger did. Wyndham could talk. Wyndham could perform. He had that pedigree with Blackjack Mulligan being his dad. And he worked with those guys a long time. Anyway, he had that great series with Flair in Florida. And then in early '87, he worked with those guys. He had a connection with that group. So if you had put him as a heel before Luger in that group, man.
Magic. It could have took it. It was already great, but it could have rose, man, to the top. So I'm gonna give you these 5. Don't laugh at me too much. Like, these are just personal favorites. The guys that made me love wrestling. All right. So at number 5, I got Mr. Perfect. When I was a kid, I thought Mr. Perfect was the coolest thing out there. You spit the gun. I don't know. I've been doing this since I was a kid.
So you're going with the perfect gimmick as opposed to the overall Kurt Hennig.
Yes,
AKA.
the perfect gimmick itself. Yeah. So for me, as a kid, and I did it. I still do it now. Spitting the gum out and trying to smack the gum. I can't tell you how many times I struck out. I can't. But I know that if I'm trying to get into the Hall of Fame of gum spitting, I'm probably batting about 267. That's probably where I'm at on that. But he made me fall in love. Like, when I was probably about 7 or 8, and I was just like, man, it's something about Mr. Perfect. He was cool. He had the great promos with he was Steve Jordan, and he throws from one end of the field to the other. I just thought that Mr. Perfect was great. I had Perfect. I'm going to throw Macho Man in there because, the Macho Man is the Macho Man. Nobody, there's plenty of people that can cut promos, but nobody can cut a promo quite like the way the Macho Man cut a promo. And I just love everything about him. Miss Elizabeth gave him, that extra piece on the side, and you really didn't know, in the beginning, you didn't know what their real relationship was. And then you found out later what they, truly were all about. The $1 Million Man. I just thought, I thought it was funny just watching the $1 Million Man, treating the kids bad. The kid till you bounce the ball 15 times and he kicks it. I'm like, that's just that's the nice guy in me wanting to be evil and watching it like that's great. And then I got Shawn Michaels.
Right.
And my number one guy is The Rock. Because when I was a kid, I was like, this guy just spits cool.
Wait a minute. There's not one spot for Flair in that top five?
That's what I said. Like it's now you got to understand. I grew up right around the time Flair was leaving, he was leaving WCW to go to WWE, and then it was back and forth. And I caught a lot of Flair when he was hurt. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't truly get a chance to appreciate Flair until now. Like I said, I know what he is now. If I had to put him like I was talking about the overall, he's the overall guy. There's, in my opinion, you can't go overall. But like for me growing up and then my guys, I was like, I actually liked late run Flair a little bit too. It wasn't his best Flair, but I thought he did really good work at the end of his career. Shawn Michaels Flair match was a really good match. I mean, it wasn't phenomenal, but it gave you like, oh man, they're really telling this story, and I loved how they told the story. So so that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why he's not in.
Okay, all right. I get that.
So I thought if I had a chance to explain it to you, you'd be like, okay, I understand.
You can make a claim for The Rock. I mean, I guess to me, I won't say Rock was one-dimensional, but Rock, he was excellent on the mic. There ain't no question about that. Excellent on the mic. He did draw money. But just his I guess his stick in the ring. I mean, it's just the normal.
I think he oversold a little bit, just a little bit.
He did, but a lot of them did. Like Flair oversold a lot. Yeah, I mean the flop. But it wasn't like over the top.
Right.
Like Rock when he get caught in the stunner, you kind of see he's gonna push off. Obviously,
he goes in there.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know if I could put The Rock up there. I mean, if anything, I would put Michaels over The Rock, just because again the longevity. Like The Rock, I mean, he was only his peak was probably 3 years.
Yeah, because I was probably from what he came in 96, but his really good runs were like
99
99
2000, 2001. Yeah. 2002 he left to go, when he lost to Brock. His peak, his prime years were 3. So that's what I'm saying. Like Michaels, his prime years longer.
Mm-hmm.
He had the ability to put on a great match with different styles, and that's why I would say Flair's the greatest of all time. You would put him in Florida against now a cruiserweight for the world title. He would put on a great match. Okay, we're gonna have you go against a muscle guy. We want you to wrestle Kerry Von Erich for 60 minutes in Texas. He would put on a great show. Okay, we want you to go to Greensboro. We want you to wrestle Steamboat for an hour,
and then put on a phenomenal match.
Yeah. Then we want you to go to Florida. We want you to wrestle Dusty, for 60. Then we want you to, out of the box. Okay, we want you to go out to Portland. We want you to wrestle Billy Jack Haynes. Or we want you to go to Kansas. You're going to wrestle Harley. All of these different styles, all of these different body types. And he had to adjust nightly, not a week or a month, like now, like Eric Bischoff will say, each pay-per-view was like a chapter in a book. You got 3 or 4 weeks to set up to the conclusion. Flair's doing this 7 nights a week. Every night against, like I said, different guys. And Michaels kind of did that during his run. He'll wrestle Hart. He wrestled Sid. He wrestled Nash. He wrestled Vader. He wrestled the Bulldog. He had some great matches with that great match with Sheldon Benjamin, his second go around. But to me, it's, I've never had those. To me, that 5-star, oh my God, I got to go back and see that match, just for, like I said, the storytelling, how it starts from the beginning, goes to hills and the valleys, and then it reached that conclusion. It kind of surprised me a little bit. You want to see the match, like, okay, it was a back and forth, and there was some comedic stuff into it, but like, I can't think of like that one match with The Rock that says, boom, I got to go back and see that again.
I feel like The Rock is kind of more like, he is, I would say, Vince McMahon's definition of what wrestling is now. And I feel
Yeah.
like he's probably the best of what his definition of wrestling is now.
Yeah.
So for me, I can give you all of that. And like I said, you're right. He didn't have a long period of time, but he just had such a profound effect on me. Sitting there
Yeah.
watching those promos, and like I said,
Oh,
I'm a huge,
hilarious.
the promo music. There's other parts of it, but that for me was just like, man, this is amazing. I wanted to be The Rock. Obviously, I don't think it was going to happen. I tried the eyebrow a couple of times; it didn't work out for me. But I wanted to be him. That was my guy. But
that for that period, nobody could touch him on the mic, no question. And you talk about the music. Once you hear it, you knew. But and I guess I'm going back because my prime, I was watching those, all I would say from '84 on, but when I really remember the wrestling, when you hear Flair's music, off top, it's very subtle, but then it hits that crescendo, but it's like, boom, here we go. It's not that loud over the top, the breaking of the glass or the Heartbreak Kid or that, that crescendo with Bret Hart right off the top and you knew it was coming. It's that slow build.
It's that slow build and here he is. It's
the
Nature Boy.
That slow build. It was like, wait a minute. Oh, here it comes. So, yeah. And then the look with Flair. And I think a lot of these guys now, with The Rock, with his, when he came out with his designer sports coats and everything like that, they kind of tailored what Flair did in the 80s, different suits on each promo and, dressing the part and everything like that. So, that's the whole overall, that, like I said, charisma, the ability in the ring, the ability to draw money and to bring them in to the arena and being the guy to lead the match. That was another thing. Most of these nights, being the heel, you got to lead.
Yeah, he took a beating a lot. Flair took a lot of beatings, man. He took a lot of beatings.
Yeah, but the thing was, he had to make that guy in that company, in that territory, stay the top guy.
Right.
I can't come in there and beat you in 5 minutes because then when I leave, you still got to run that. You got to still be that number one face in that territory. So I'm gonna take your best shot, but then at the end, I'm gonna sneak to win. And I think to me that's another thing that is lost in today's wrestling. You don't have that guy that's gonna be like I said, that's gonna make that guy.
Right.
Because everybody supposedly is made now.
Yeah, and
if you don't have that guy,
it's almost like too much talent now. And it feels that way. It just feels like there's too much talent. That's what I think the WWE's biggest problem is. They have too much talent. And they don't know what to do with most of the talent that they have that's good. And they only really have room enough for a couple of big stars. So maybe one day they'll get it all together, but who knows? Now, Sean, before we get off here, once again, man, I truly appreciate you coming on. But I have one last question. What type of
this is the last?
This is the last one. This is the last one right here. So we talk, Legacy Maker Sports Network. We talk about legacy. What type of legacy do you want to leave in sports journalism at CBS 6? What type of legacy do you want to leave? What is your goal in leaving a legacy?
Wow. I guess my legacy would be that I always want people to feel that they can trust me. They can work with me. I always want to be that guy where I am flexible. I can work with anybody. We may not get along. We may have some differences, but I want, people to think of me as that guy that I know I can work with and I know we're going to get the job done. It might be some bumps along the way getting to the red light, but once the red light is on, the teamwork is outstanding. So I think I want my legacy to be. I want my legacy to be Sean was a guy that he could be dependable. He could be counted on. He could be flexible. He could work with just about anybody. He took pride in his craft, and he was willing to go above and beyond the call of duty to get the job done. Whether it took an hour, or two after I needed to finish the job, I was not going to finish. I wasn't going to rest until the job was complete.
All right, man. That's quite the legacy to leave. Everybody, I want to thank everybody who watched and tuned in for this interview with one of the best guys around here in the Richmond area, and just in general, Mr. Sean Robertson of CBS 6 News here in Richmond, Virginia. Sean, if you would like to leave anything, your Twitter handle, any of that stuff for everybody, please do so.
Sure. Twitter handle is at CBS6 Sports Sean, all one, the number 6. If you wanted to hit me up on Facebook, I have a work page, Sean Robertson at WTVR CBS6, and Instagram is SKR1125. I think that was the right one. But yeah, I gotta remember. I don't use Instagram as much as I should, I guess. I'm normally Twitter and Facebook, but yeah, normally hit me up on Twitter. You got some questions about a list, wrestling list, feel free. You got some journalism questions, feel free to do that. But yeah, at CBS6 Sports Sean.
Well, Sean, like I said, I truly appreciate it, man, because you've always been kind to me. And, I've known you for a couple of years now, but you've always been kind to me and everybody on my team. So we truly appreciate, for always being kind and always having, lending giving us some advice and all that stuff. We truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. See, I'm getting old because now I'm thinking I was where you are, where I was when I was at Virginia State. You want to build. You're trying to build that legacy. You're trying to build your brand slowly but surely. You're trying to get your name out there. And that's what people have to do. Take heed with what Darrell is doing with Legacy. Was it Legacy Sports? Because I see Legacy
Maker.
If there's not a way to get your foot in the door, you build your own house. You build your own building. And that's what Darrell is doing. He's building his company from within. He's getting guys that's from schools and giving them opportunities that maybe were not given to them at other places. And they're building something now with Legacy Maker. I mean, you're going to all of these games. You're going to UVA. You're going to VCU. He's last year, was it the year before, was doing women's basketball games with Richmond.
Yeah, we did a couple with Richmond. So yeah, we've been growing that. We've been trying, but like I said, great people like yourself that have always, been able to, give us the advice that we need to keep growing. And, we truly appreciate that.
My pleasure, man. Keep it up.
All right, everybody. That's Sean Robinson, Channel 6, CBS here in Richmond. Make sure y'all check him out. Thank y'all. I'm Darrell Owens, Legacy Maker Sports Network. Until next time.